second piece of the success cycle that you have here. And then the next phase is once you are starting to ask questions and put those pieces together and you're starting to work on projects, you're starting to volunteer for things because you understand how things don't work, now you're able to get feedback. And so I always like to tell people, be coachable. You gotta be coachable. You gotta be the type of person where you're saying, hey, what am I doing? How am I doing it? What can be better? And you have to proactively ask it. Because let me tell you, Mike, how much leadership do we have between us? About
20 plus years.
About 20 plus years in leadership. And let me tell you, sometimes your leader or your boss or your supervisor is not gonna tell you what you're doing wrong. Because one, people fear conflict. Two, people assume that giving you feedback will be conflict. And they will literally watch you run in circles and not mention or say one thing to you on how you can get better. So you gotta ask for it. You open the door. And let me tell you, I've been around and I've been doing this for a long time. I still take a deep breath when I ask the question because I don't know what they're gonna say. But this has always been my philosophy. I wanna know your hand. I wanna know what you're thinking. I wanna see what you're thinking about when you're doing my performance review and you're in the leadership meeting and you're discussing where I am. Because at least if I know your hand and what you're thinking, I can do something about it. What do you think about that?
Yeah, and that's one of the things where, depending on who you're working with, it's appreciated by others as well. Imagine we say, hey, I did this thing. I'm curious to know what your insight is, what's your perspective on that. And like Keisha mentioned before, sometimes it can be uncomfortable at first. But the more and more we do something, the more comfortable we get. So we look at it and say, hey, we just did this presentation. What feedback do you have on how I communicate? And be ready to embrace it, because here, this is all about success. It's all about taking advantage of the opportunity for you to get better. I recall back, we talked about Detroit Persian before, and I played baseball, and I remember you have feedback that's directly for you, and you also may have some indirect feedback. So even hopping back to that curiosity piece and loving feedback, I remember there was times where the coach would coach another player, and if I'm in earshot where I can hear what the coach is saying, coach might not be talking to me, but rest assured, if coach is giving the best practice, I'm gonna take that best practice to apply it to my game, even though it wasn't directly applied to me. So getting feedback, being relentless about feedback, it helps us all to grow, evolve, and to be stronger.
Yeah, so I'm gonna put you on the spot and I'm gonna ask you to role play with me for a second.
Let's do it.
Okay, so I want you to role play as if you were a person who, you're working on a team, I'm your supervisor, and you're nervous about asking for feedback, but you ask about that feedback so you can get better, and then you respond to it.
Okay,
Fair?
let's go.
All right, so Mike, I'm glad you met with me today. I just wanted to check in with you on how you're performing.
I think I'm doing okay, but I was wondering if you could give me a little bit more insight and perspective, because right now, to be honest with you, I'm not really exactly sure how I'm performing or how I'm viewed, how it's measured. So I was hoping that you could give me some insight on how I'm performing so that I can get your perspective as well.
So yeah, I appreciate you saying that, and I'm sorry I haven't been more clear in guiding you along the way as far as your feedback. But one of the things I think you need to do to grow is, you know, a lot of good information, but I don't see you sharing it with the rest of the team. So it's great to have one of you, but it's even greater for the company and for this team is if we have 5 of you and you have 4 peers and associates that you have, and you have these great ideas and you kind of like work off to the side, but you don't really share anything with anybody else. And so although I can always depend on you, the next phase for your career is leveling up the team, because I do see you as in a leadership capacity, and you can't get there if you don't know how to inspire and encourage other people.
Okay, I see what you mean. So actually I heard this thing about being a little bit more curious as well. So I do meet with the team on the side, but sometimes you're not there. So you mean, for instance, in our team huddles, if I'm just sharing information right there and maybe getting them on the agenda?
Yeah, and I appreciate that you let me know that you are meeting with them on the side. That's not something that I'm aware of, but I will keep that in mind with your performance review.
Okay, perfect. So what I'll do is I'll share those things in the huddle, and actually I'll keep you in the loop as we go.
All right, give him a hand. Give Mike a hand. He likes applause. So as you can see, that was a situation where the person had no idea what was actually holding them back. And the leader had no idea, because the leader is so focused on doing their day-to-day that they're not really thinking about developing this person. And so sometimes we fall in that position where we have leaders that don't know what to do with us. And let me tell you, I can preach on that one, okay? They don't know what to do with you. They're not quite ready for you. When I started over in my entry-level position, I was the oldest person on my team. And so with that, I had a lot more experience than the people on my team, because I was in an entry-level position and they didn't know what to do with me. So I did a lot of what we call coaching up. And that's when you're providing feedback to your leader and your leader's leader, but you gotta know how to give it so that people can be receptive of it. So at the end of the day, he found something out that he can now use and he can grow himself. And then that time that performance review comes, now he can be in a better position to be successful.